All right, today we're going to dive into a pretty fascinating strategy for deploying powerful AI agents. Look, it's one thing to get them up and running, but it's another thing entirely to make them smart, safe, and actually valuable right from the get-go. And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you unleash this incredible power without, causing total chaos in your business? Every leader wants what AI can do, but absolutely nobody wants the risk of an autonomous system just going completely off the rails. It's that classic tug of war between innovating fast and, well, not breaking everything. So, what's the answer? Well, the typical answer you'll hear in most boardrooms is to be extremely cautious. The standard playbook is all about minimizing risk by moving slow, taking deliberate, one-step-at-a-time approaches. Let's take a look at what that usually means.
Okay, so here's that standard rollout. And on the surface, it feels pretty logical, right? It feels safe. You build a sandbox, you add some human oversight, you pilot it with just one client, and only then do you scale it up. But, and this is a huge but, look closely at that last phase, phase 5. The most powerful part, where the agent actually learns and evolves on its own, is pushed all the way to the very end. The deepest, most important learning is literally saved for last.
But here's the big question. What if all that caution is actually costing you? This is where the whole strategy does a complete 180. It's a game-changing pivot. Instead of saving learning for last, you drag it all the way to the front of the line, from a learn last model to a learn first model. Let's see what that looks like.
So here it is, side by side. The old plan manages risk by just putting off the really complex stuff for months, but the new plan is much smarter. It doesn't avoid risk, it contains it. By pulling that agent evolution right into the sandbox in phase 1, you start learning how these things really behave from day one, but in a totally controlled environment. You're not delaying discovery, you're hitting the accelerator on it, just securely.
And this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. This is the entire philosophy in one sentence. Waiting until phase 5 means you are choosing to fly blind for months, missing out on tons of opportunities to understand how your agents actually tick and how they can get better. That is a massive strategic disadvantage.
Think about it this way. It's kind of like training a pilot. You would never tell a new pilot to just fly on autopilot for a couple of years and then let them try a hyper-realistic flight simulator. No way. You put them in that simulator on day 1. You let them crash and burn 1,000 times where it doesn't matter, so they are ready for the real world. That is exactly what this learn-first approach does for AI agents.
Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how does it actually work? How do you build one of these learning labs where agents can fail safely and, more importantly, actually learn from those failures? Let's get into the mechanics.
The core concept driving this is called systemic learning, and it's a huge difference in thinking. It's the difference between an agent that hits a wall and just stops versus an agent that hits a wall, understands why the wall is there, and then figures out a way around it for next time. It's about building institutional knowledge into the system itself, not just executing code.
And this learning isn't just random. It happens in this really structured 4-step loop. First, the agent observes a failure. Let's say it hits an API rate limit because it's making too many requests. Then, and this is the key, it reasons. It asks an external tool, hey, why did I just fail? With that answer, it hypothesizes a better strategy, like, oh, I should probably slow down and try again in a bit. And finally, that new wisdom gets codified and saved so it can be used again.
Now, that reasoning step is just absolutely crucial. By using an external knowledge source like the Perplexity API, the agent isn't just guessing. It's grounding its own self-improvement in real-world, cited information. This is what keeps it from just making stuff up and ensures that the learning is actually valid and useful.
And the output of this whole learning loop is something called an awareness packet. The best way to think of these is like little modules of codified common sense for the entire AI system. Each packet is a little nugget of wisdom that was born from a failure, and it teaches all the other agents about the rules of the road. System boundaries, constraints, and best practices.
And these aren't just abstract ideas. Take a look at these examples. You can have a packet that teaches agents how to be more efficient, another that explains how to redact personal information, or even one that defines how to operate under a strict budget. And the best part is, every new agent that gets created inherits this whole library of wisdom, so it doesn't have to make the same mistakes all over again.
And this learn-first philosophy starts to shape every other business decision. I mean, look at the reasoning here.
Why use messy, real-world data for testing? Because that's where the real learning happens. Why start with a read-only agent for a client pilot? Because it's the fastest, safest way to prove value and get that crucial feedback. Every single decision is optimized for safe, rapid learning.
So when you put this all together, what's the ultimate payoff here? You're not just launching a product anymore, you are actively cultivating intelligence.
And this really is the core takeaway. The objective completely shifts. You're no longer just trying to deploy some static tool. You are building an ecosystem of agents that is designed from the ground up to get smarter, safer, and more context-aware with every single action and every single failure. It's a living system, not a fixed one.
So it leaves us with this one kind of provocative thought. Conventional wisdom always tells us to avoid failure at all costs. But what if that's wrong? What if the fastest, and maybe even the safest, path to truly powerful AI is to build a system that embraces failure as its primary engine for learning, right from the very beginning?